Good afternoon. Welcome to the City of Toronto's COVID-19 media briefing for Wednesday, April the 8th, 2020. Joining us today, Toronto Mayor John Tory, Toronto's Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Eileen Davila, and Toronto Fire Chief and General Manager of the Office of Emergency Management, Matthew Pegg. First up is Mayor Tory. Mr. Mayor.
Well, good afternoon. I want to start by extending my warmest greetings to Toronto's Jewish community as they celebrate the beginning of Passover at sundown today. As I've said before, but in this time of crisis it bears repeating, Passover is normally a time for friends and families to come together at seders across our city, sharing in festive meals and reflecting on the story of the liberation of the Jewish people. But I know that this year's celebrations, unfortunately, have to be very different. This year, many traditional Passover celebrations have been cancelled to encourage social and physical distancing and to avoid gatherings of large groups. I want to thank families for their understanding and for their respecting of those rules for tonight. I myself will be attending 2 virtual seders, and while I miss being able to be out at large events in person in the community, I welcome the chance to connect online as I've been doing many nights and joining in many of these important celebrations. To everyone celebrating Passover in our city tonight, I say Hag Pesach Sameach. As you know, the City of Toronto was forced to remove 200,000 surgical masks from service yesterday due to the discovery that they failed to meet the quality standards that we require. I'm very pleased to report that the Province of Ontario is providing 200,000 replacement surgical masks to us today in response to this pressing need. On behalf of all of us in Toronto, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to Premier Ford and to the Ontario Public Service team for moving so quickly to come to our assistance. It's another example of the good cooperation that has continued between the City of Toronto and the Province of Ontario as we work together to ensure that we do everything we can to help people during this emergency. I'm relieved to hear the Premier say today as well that the province will be ramping up the COVID-19 testing. While the province has the responsibility for testing, this is something that the City and all of us fighting COVID-19 want to see happening as quickly as possible. I accept the advice I have received unreservedly from our healthcare professionals, namely that much more testing will help us to go the way of places like South Korea, identifying cases earlier, limiting the spread, saving lives, and bringing much closer the day when we can close this awful chapter. We are continuing to drive home the importance of people keeping their distance from each other and staying home as much as possible. The City is continuing its coordinated enforcement with Toronto Police Service and the City's parks staff, as well as the bylaw officers with regard to the use of parks amenities, including off-leash dog parks, playgrounds, fitness stations, skate parks, other facilities of that kind, and generally congregating in groups and parking in closed lots. Our COVID-19 enforcement team started a Parks Blitz last weekend, and that all-hands-on-deck approach will continue throughout this upcoming holiday weekend. We have deployed 200 Toronto bylaw enforcement officers in a coordinated effort with 160 Toronto police officers, including community response units, neighbourhood officers, and the mounted and marine units. We continue to refine hotspot locations based on complaint data and in-field observations so that we can target enforcement in the parks with the most amenities, the most activity, and the largest crowds. But believe it or not, despite all of this, despite the fact we are facing a deadly virus and all of the information that's been conveyed and all of the presence people had out there last weekend, people continue to risk their health and the health of their loved ones through some of their behavior. We continue to see, for example, people participating in prohibited activities in our parks, including but not limited to Smythe Park, for example, where a large group of people are parking there at night to hang out. Don Valley Golf Course, we continue to find people trespassing and playing golf at a time when the course isn't even open yet, let alone being off limits. Cedarvale Park, people using the cricket pitch, the dog off-leash area, and the baseball field. And Humber Bay Park, where 2 fires were started on the beach there last night. While the parks themselves are not closed and people are free to walk through them, people need to know that it is our very strong preference and advice, and the advice of our healthcare professionals, that they should stay home, except for essential travel, or to take a walk or run or walking your dog, but preferably in a quieter area. We have closed playgrounds and other parks amenities, not because we wanted to, but in order to stop the spread of the COVID-19 virus in our community. This is about saving lives. I know people would like to sit on a bench in a park or enjoy one of the Muskoka chairs down by the boardwalk, and that includes me, but we're doing everything we can to discourage that right now. If you really must leave your home, and we are not encouraging that, in fact, we are actively discouraging people from leaving their home, then you can walk, bike, or run through a park, but you cannot, as a matter of common sense, as a matter of health protection, and for that matter, as a matter of the letter of the law, you cannot stand less than a hockey stick away from someone you don't live with in a park or in a public square. We would frankly prefer that you stay home. It is in the best interest of all concerned. You can't hang out with your friends in a closed parking lot. As a city, we are not into hanging out right now in these days of crisis and sacrifice. You can't play cricket or touch football or frisbee with your buddies in one of our public spaces. This is all about making sure you don't get COVID-19, get exposed to it, or get someone else sick by spreading this virus. I want to thank our Toronto Police and bylaw officers who will continue to be out in our parks, principally to educate the public about the need to keep their distance, and will be encouraging people not to linger in the parks. Anyone using a closed park's amenities, such as fitness equipment, playgrounds, or off-leash dog parks, could be fined up to $1,000. Anyone not keeping their physical distance from others in a park could get a $1,000 ticket. Those are big fines, but this is a big battle against a deadly enemy. Again, I know the weather is getting better and we all want to enjoy spring, but all of this is in an effort to stop the spread of COVID-19, save lives, protect our healthcare system, and return to normalcy as quickly as possible. This pandemic is challenging us to do many things differently, so I want to acknowledge the work we have done to help our city staff telework so that they can continue providing residents with the services they need, sometimes now more than ever. Back on March the 13th, the city had the ability to have 1,000 teleworkers working at the same time on our system. That was the maximum amount we had ever been able to accommodate, even on a big snow day. City technology infrastructure set a target of having 6,000 teleworkers by May the 8th. They got to work, and now, a full month earlier, they have reached the targeted 6,000 people able to telework and carry on delivering services to you. And we are now working to have 10,000 people able to telework in the coming weeks. 311 Toronto is also piloting telework, and we're in the process of expanding that pilot so that we can deploy people taking 311 calls from their home, and so they won't have to go away from home and thus be one more person that can stay home as per the advice of our doctor. In the coming weeks, we will be able to have 50% of 311 staff working remotely from their homes. This again demonstrates the innovation and expertise our city staff have and that we need right now. I've told people we need things at wartime speed, not at peacetime speed, and that comes to teleworking, modernizing 311, and a host of other things, and they're delivering on that. The Strategic Command Team met this morning, as it does every day, for its daily meeting, and received an update on the work being done to help the homeless during this pandemic. We've created 350 new spaces in order to create physical distance for people in our shelters, respites, and 24-hour drop-ins. This includes 5 community centres across the city and 3 sites operated by community providers. We've also put up 3 isolation sites, and we have a 200-room hotel site in addition to that. A 400-bed recovery site is being planned now. 12 hotels with 1,200 rooms have been secured to be part of our shelter response. 5 are operational. 7 will be up and running over the coming week. We are working to identify those at greatest risk and moving them into hotels. City staff are continuing to work on securing additional spaces, and we will continue to provide updates on that.